Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video. Today's video is going to be about a bioactive setup that I'm going to be creating for my crested geckos. And this is it right here. These are freaking expensive, okay? My local pet shop had this particular one backstocked. And I saw it on top of their other cages. And this particular one has a crack on it, right about here, right? So the guy was probably not going to be able to sell it at all. And this is why you have to be buying from your local pet shop instead of these big chain stores, because they will not hook you up like this. But grand total for this tank was $30, okay? So don't feel the need to buy these ones because it's an Exoterra or a Zilla or whatever it is. Just buy something that fits your needs and what you're comfortable with, and don't be afraid of not spending a lot of money on these enclosures. If you don't need it, don't buy it. Okay? And this is going to house my two hatchling crested geckos. Once they start getting bigger, obviously I will need to separate them. Hopefully you can get some inspiration from my build, and maybe you can come up with your own, and let's have fun with it. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is obviously get rid of this crap. Now that it's bare, now what you have to do is wipe it down with alcohol to make sure any dust and any fingerprints and all that, oils from your hands, whatever, are completely off of the glass. Alright guys, so right here what I have for you guys is the isopods I'll probably be using. So what I'll probably end up doing is actually using orange, calico, and dwarf white. I also have a few more isopods. I don't want to get too into them because that's actually for another video. These are probably the usual suspects for bioactive terrariums and paludariums and all that good stuff. But check these guys out. This is basically just a general party mix. So here we have probably the most important part of the build, excluding the tank itself. This will be feeding your plants, your isopods. This is the blood, the body. Now how you do a combination of it depends on what animal you are going to be doing. A lot of people like to use something similar like Reptisoil or Eco Earth, because it's already designed for animal use. Here we have sand. A lot of people like to use this. This will be my first time using it. This is Reptibark. Okay, now I chose this one because of how big the chunks are, and so it'll decompose very slowly. And I actually really like the texture it gives soil. Okay, now another thing that is very important is going to be your sphagnum moss. Now this will help, again, like this one, because it's spongy. It'll expand and contract when it gets moist, and it will aerate the soil. The water it holds will hydrate your isopods and springtails. They can eat this as well as the bark. That's why you really should be putting this in there. Some kind of wood chipping or bark or something like that, okay? Now another thing a lot of people like to use is coconut husk. Now this is really good because of how it breaks down, okay? It breaks down very easily and it's stringy. So it's very easy for your isopods and springtails to eat this. And again, like with the sphagnum moss, it actually absorbs a lot of the water. It'll probably be a mixture of these four, but we'll see. All right, so here I have the Reptisoil, cocoa husk, sand, and Reptibark, okay? So it's just gonna be a simple mix. And some sand. So here is where you're gonna have to get really brave, okay?
Let's get crazy. This is your bravery test.
So what I decided to do, at least on this side, is to use Gorilla Glue, okay? mainly because I need this to be very, very sealed where the crack is. Now, also what I'm going to do is I'm not going to line it all the way up to the front because I don't need to do that. I'm going to do it about halfway, about where the crack ends, okay? Another little tip is you don't have to go all the way to the bottom because you'll have your soil and your drainage layer down here. Luckily for me, the crack ends at about where I plan to end as well, okay? So, let's just do it, I guess. Remember when I said the last part was your bravery test? This is your real bravery test.
What? What the f?
Because now, there's really no turning back. Alright, so with water, you will activate the glue. Now once that starts happening, you're definitely going to want to get this in there as packed as you want. And, you know, the glue should basically do the rest. So, let's do it. Alright, I am terrified. Alright, once you have it down, want to press it into the glue. Now the glue is supposed to expand. And that's just about it, and you gotta let it sit for a good while, to be honest. Okay, here we are the day after. Now if you can see here, this is the glue oozing out, and it's actually also oozing out right about there. Okay, so I actually underestimated how much this would expand. Now it looked good, and I had to put more dirt later on and actually weigh it down. Okay, so that's kind of a pro tip. Conduct its spread. I used these pieces of foam to lay on the substrate where the glue was to keep it pressed evenly spread out. And I used these, they're leg weights that I got from my mother-in-law.
A couple of pounds of weight.
If you don't control how it grows, dude, this thing was like bubbling basically. Like it was insane. The first hour, keep an eye on it because it will spread exponentially, and you need to be adding more substrate. You see how much substrate I ended up putting onto it? All that excess, I will be taking out for this side. So when you do it yourself, make sure there's a little area at the top that it can spread to, so it looks more like this. Because if you don't, I didn't leave enough space and it ended up oozing over, okay? So same thing with here. You might want to leave a little bit more space. I left a little bit of space, like hardly any at all. Definitely use gloves because I didn't, and I have some glue here that mixed, so that's gonna be a issue trying to get off. But that's basically what it looked like. If you don't like that, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You're gonna have to use black foam so you can get a black adhesive instead of this yellowish white. Or some people like to cover it with tint, or you know, you could put, you know, I don't know. But yeah, there's multiple things you could do. I mean, like I said, a lot of people like to use black foam for this reason. They don't want to see this. But honestly, I couldn't care less. It's about what's inside and not the out. Okay. Okay. So here what I have is what's going to be the final substrate. Right, so I'm going to take the substrate that I used from the sides and just going to add more soil, because this is going to be more catering towards the plants and less catering towards aesthetics, right? So, and I have a bit more coconut husk here because this is more for the isopods than anything else for them to eat. And then I have sphagnum moss that has been soaking here, nice and wet. It's okay if it's overly wet because it's going to mix into the soil anyway, and we have to moisten it as well. And here I am going to add a handful of leaf litter. So now we'll talk about drainage layers, okay? And what I'll be using is lava rocks because it's a lot more available to me. Clay balls right now are actually a little bit difficult to find, and this works just the same. And so you'll just line a little bit at the bottom. You're just trying to separate the dirt from the bottom of the tank, because what's going to happen is you're going to spray this a lot, and so any excess water that you put into the ground is going to seep down onto the bottom of it, and you don't want any stagnant water, because then you get a lot of bad bacteria and sitting water just down here. You just really don't want that, because it's bad for your insects that are living here, and it's bad for your animal ultimately. And if that does happen, then you have to somehow pull that water out, and that just, you have to rebuild the whole thing basically almost. So just avoid it altogether and get yourself a drainage layer. Now this is the barrier between your soil and your drainage layer. So this is very important. This is just a weed barrier, generic all-purpose weed barrier.
Some of y'all just need to smoke some weed and see if it don't help.
I'll probably do like an inch and then just place it on top, all right? So let's just do that now. Okay, so this is the drainage layer on and the barrier and some of the substrate, just to make sure I could weigh it down so I can more controllably lay it out without dirt getting into the drainage layer. Now, the only reason I didn't show it was because I was afraid I was going to mess it up. I didn't want you guys to see it. But basically, if you guys can see the drainage layer right here, you can do a lot better job at hiding it. I honestly don't mind. It doesn't really bother me at all. But some people are super nitpicky, trying to make it look like, you know, there's nothing there in between. And that's totally fine. I honestly don't care. And you can see all the moisture condensating on the glass. Okay, now when you're adding the substrate, I recommend building it higher in the back. It gives it more of a foreground. Okay, so build it up like this, right? You want it higher in the back and lower in the front. Okay, once you have your substrate the way you want it, you can start planting. I ended up just going with whiteouts, calicos, and a few dwarf whites. I don't even know if they're going to survive. There they go. If you don't use plants, that means eventually you will have to replace the substrate, because then it'll just turn into poop and there's no real food for the isopods to eat. Okay, but their poop is actually extremely good fertilizer for them. How's that look like? Huh? Let me know in the comments if you like it or don't like it, and then I'll move it. Yeah, right. So once you have your plants and scape that you want, you're just about done. But you also need to provide cover for the isopods, and that's what we're going to do with the sphagnum moss. You're going to do the same thing with your leaves. So that's the video. I hope you enjoyed the build. I hope you saw something different or new, and I hope that this helps anybody that's a little on the fence on doing it. This is actually really easy. It's just more of the commitment to actually doing it is the real issue. Now that I've done one, I feel a lot more confident in my ability to make more. And we will keep visiting this one to see updates and how the geckos are doing. I do plan on making some of the tanks in the back bioactive as well. I plan on doing a lot more builds and a lot more videos about the animals that I do have. So please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys around.
I'd like to wish you happy painting, and God bless, my friend.